Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of week 2. So the week 2 content, we left off last time kind of just at a brief look at this NPC with a state machine. Today we'll be taking a little bit of a deeper dive into it. So we'll also be the document itself, as I mentioned before, we'll just be implementing a pause state and having that toggle when you press button. Today during lecture, we'll see it looking at a little bit more interesting state than just pause or something. So I will need to download the starter content. Just start fresh again. State machine assets, download. Unzip. And then we'll move it somewhere outside of the downloads folder. And hard drives running low on space. Fun. Classes SCD3. I already have one in there named that same thing. We'll name this _2. Open that up. Let Unreal load. All right. So we saw this last time, but let's go over it a little bit again. When we press play, the starter project does have the 2 agents in the scene, and they are set up automatically to be using the state machine and stuff. So what we'll be doing today is actually digging into the agents themselves. And we'll be taking a look at kind of how it is switching states. As I mentioned before, they do have the state machine component along with the individual states as components added to this nav agent actor or character. All right. So if we wanted to add a new state, we'd want to go to the state machine folder and it's still named GDB. Got to rename that for the next one. And from our base state, we'll be creating a new state, inheriting all the base state stuff so it still can be attached to the state machine and it's treated like every other state. We'll be creating a child blueprint from that. We'll call this, I don't know, what kind of a state would you like to do? Some sort of like distract or maybe like a follow player type state or something else other than just walk to this navigation point. You have any suggestions or? Oh, chat. Follow player. All right. So we'll have to do a couple of things for that, but now we have the state name. We'll rename it to, oh, of course, because I clicked the chat window, it popped away from the rename. Just follow, let's go target. All right. So for our follow target state, when we open this up, it looks like just a brand new script. We have the begin play and tick, and they're both just calling the parents functionality. We'll see nothing over here on the left, just the 2 events on the graph. If we want to see what base state functionality we have to kind of override and stuff like that, we can open that right here and see what comes with the a base state. So base state has begin play, got a tick, but the tick does nothing. It has an enter, an exit, and a run main behavior. A couple of things about that. Let's actually look at the state machine itself to see when these events are actually being called. So in the state machine has an event to add all the states where it adds them, creates a map for selecting just a drop down from a specific class to say which state it is, and assigns those references using this add states function. There's quite a few different things in here and all set up. I do recommend you guys just go explore this a little bit yourself. But let's see what happens when we begin game. It automatically calls the add states, and that finds all the states on the parent actor. So gets all the base states from our parent actor, which if we look at our nav agent, our state machine's parent is the nav agent itself. So it'll find these two states and add those to a map to actually be able to select them by the class type. Next up, there's a way to set an initial state. And what that does, sets this variable called initial state and calls initialize on itself. So let's see what initialize is doing as we're kind of following along with this. Sets current state to the initial state and sets a bool to say is entering this state. All right, so that all kind of happens right at the beginning of the game to initialize everything. We see our nav agent for begin play sets that initial state to patrol. So it starts moving to that position right off the bat. Find destination here, didn't need to be there. So you can ignore that. All right, so I haven't seen anything about the entering of the states or anything yet. So let's go back to our state machine. And when it does, this is the initialize, sets a bool here. And then on the first frame, or like the first update, it asks, is it currently exiting the state? No, that bool never got set to true. So follow along with the false branch, is enter. It was set to true when we initialized it, set what state we're going to use, turns that state, turns the bool off, and then calls enter on the current state. So our enter gets called whenever it's entering a state, just once, right as soon as it enters that state. If it exits that state, we see it's going to follow that exit path and just exit the current state, call enter on the new state that we have set, things like that. So those only get called kind of like when you're entering or exiting the state, makes sense. They're called enter or exit. The other thing we have is our base state for the run main behavior. Run main behavior is something that can actually like tick during our state, and that's a terrible name for it. The next assignment will have an updated state machine with a little bit more intuitive names like state tick and state enter, state exit, stuff like that. But this can be treated like a tick. So that gets run every frame that it's in that state. That'll come in handy for our following of the player, because our player can move around and isn't always at the same destination or position while it's moving. So now that we know when these things are called, we'll go ahead and implement them for our follow target. So our follow target state, let's go ahead and look for the enter. We'll just add that event here. So when it enters this state, first thing I'm going to do is change the color. I'm going to get it entering this state and making sure that that's all working before I get the actual following a target or anything like that. So to do this, I'm going to reference the other states. Let's say we have idle and patrol. Let's just take a look at the patrol. Patrol, on enter of patrol, changes color and then tells it to go to its next destination. So this color override shot over to the owner is how we can change the color. So follow target, event enter. Let's make sure we do call that parent function. So we'll add a call to parent, and we're way up here. Add that parent call for when it enters the state, and then add on any additional functionality we want this specific state to do. We'll get our owner, which is getting a reference to that nav agent object, essentially. And then we can send it that message for color override. Got to choose a new color. Let's see, when it's following, we'll make it maybe like an orange. Yeah. I'm terrible at color choosing. Lightish orange, pastel orange. All right. And then let's try and have some sort of key press change this change to this state. So for this, we're going to be treating our level blueprint as kind of like our manager type thing. If we open up the level blueprint, that's from our blueprints dropdown, open level blueprint. There's some code already set up in here. There's agents that are already added, along with a selection for when you press right, should choose the next agent and stuff. We'll be digging more into that in the next experiment and rewriting it all. But for this, we'll add another input since we have an array or direct access to our agents right here. We'll add an input and let's just look for keyboard or I hate input key. Input key brings that up, and let's see, I believe the pause will have you implemented on spacebar. So let's say F will trigger the following. F. When we press F, let's go ahead and try and change the state for our nav agent. We see an example of change state right here. We'll have to call that and select our new state we just created. And we need a way to let our level call that. Well, our level holds an array of these direct BP nav agent objects. So we can directly call any functionality from a certain nav agent straight from that. If we, for example, our nav agent has just the two interface functions. But if we were to add a new event or something here, custom event, and we'll just leave it custom event 0, just for demonstration. If we pull off our agents, we'll issue this command to all of them at once. Custom, and won't be able to do that. I forgot I have to get the very first one of it, since this is an array. If we get 0, that'll get the first agent in our array. And then from that, we're looking at actions a nav agent could do. So I created one called custom event 0. We're able to call that event just like a function. And that's how we can talk from our level blueprint over to our nav agent. So custom event 0 is not a good name for a function. Let's say We'll rename this to toggle following. When we press this, if it's not following, I want it to start following. If it is already following, I just want it to, let's say, go back to patrol. So first thing we'll need to do, let's just get it set up to do that change state immediately. So getting a reference to our state machine, so change state. Which state are we going to go to? Well, let's go to our follow target state. If we compile and save this, all right, let's see what happens. Oh, I'm not finished. I haven't connected the key to actually tell it to toggle. Let's call that toggle following on the very first agent. All right. So we play, click the game to give it input. If I press F, it gave us a little bit of a message up here. It was hard to see, so I'm gonna pause the game and pull up my output log. It says, make sure you added the state. So I just created this follow target, but I never told my nav agent anything about it other than trying to change to that type here. The issue is I never added that as a state on this character. So when it goes to do this change state, we'll actually hop over to our state machine and see how it implements the change state. Okay. It's going to run this thing, checking the different types and seeing if there's a specific instance of, or if that component was added or not. If it is, or if it's already in the state or it's not added, then it goes ahead and prints all that. Our check map key was where we're getting our print. Hey, we never added it. It couldn't actually get a reference to that. So we have to make sure we add that state. Quick fix, we'll add that state to our nav agent. What did I call it? Follow target. Now that that state's added, hopping back over to our level, we press play, click the window to give it input, press F now. We saw that character just quickly turn that light orange, almost tan color, and then it's not really doing anything. It's not following a player or anything like that, but we did get it into the state at least. So next up, we'll have to add a quick player or something for it to follow. For that, I'm going to, let's see, do I want to set up a quick player using WASDA? Yeah, we'll do it that way. We'll just set up a simple character player to run around. Do character, PP, player. We'll give it a quick mesh and for the mesh, it will be a sphere. Oh no. Didn't mean to do that. Mesh, now we could actually choose a real mesh. We can select the SK mannequin and we do have the animation for it already set up and stuff. So might as well use that one that's already provided. Select the animation, drop it down, -90 units, bring that close to the floor. I'm just a poor ball, nobody loves me. Yeah, I didn't really think. I was like, oh wait, we already have the other mesh in here, so might as well make use of that. All right, so we've got this character in here. We would need to set up some inputs and stuff for it. All right, let's go ahead and add some inputs. Open, not open level blueprint. Don't know what I was thinking there. I meant to go to settings and project settings. We'll just do some basic WASDA and movement for it. So we'll have 2 axes, move forward, move backward, or move right rather. So it's forward and backwards can be on the same axis. We'll have 2 keys each. When we press W, tell it to move forward in the positive direction, so scale of 1. Press S. Make sure it's got a scale of -1, basically saying move backwards. Right, pretty straightforward, D and A. D. And A would be a negative scale. All right, got some inputs set up. Let's go back to our player and handle those inputs. Input axis. And the ones I just created. Move forward and move right. And we'll send the inputs over to our actual character movement. Add input. Add movement input. Copy that. Our axis values will be our scale values. And our directions will be different. That's why we have to have 2 of them looking very similar. For our move forward, we'd want to get actor forward. And the direction for move right is get actor right. All right. So we've got inputs set up. We have to make sure that one of these characters is actually in the level and the inputs are going to it. So I'm going to go down, just place one in the level and then scroll way down almost towards the bottom of it. For auto possess player, I want player 0 to possess this character. If we press play, we'll notice our camera got changed. It went just straight to our character's position and stuff. I don't really want that. I want that camera to stay where that is, the original spawn point is. So I'm going to set up another camera and just place that in a level and tell it to use that one instead. So we'll go ahead and add or search for place actors camera, drop one into the level, get it pretty much up there, and tilt it down so we have a nice overhead view of the camera, or overhead view of the level. Let's change this camera actor to, let's call it a main camera. Save that. And then in our level, or in our level blueprint, where we're doing some other inputs, on beginning play, that's where it's making the array of the agent references. What I'm going to do is basically get our player controller and tell it to use that camera we've placed in the level. Get player controller, set view target with blend. That's what I'm looking for. View target can take a just an actor reference, or I like to plug the camera directly in there. One nice thing about the level blueprint, it's different than other blueprints since, well, it is the level blueprint itself. If we have an object selected in the level and we just right click in the level blueprint, we can actually get a reference directly to that object right here. So let's create a reference to our main camera. Tell it that's our new target. As far as blend time, just leave all those other things default and see how that works. If we play, we've now got our character moving with WASDA. Looks kind of funny with it moving backwards and playing running forward and stuff, but close enough. We don't need a fully functional player. Got it moving around. We just needed one in the level. All right. Next up, let's implement that follow target functionality. So right now, all it's doing is changing the color, and then it was still just moving wherever it was told to move last and stuff. So if we look at our patrol for how we get that moving, it's calling next destination on our owner. So let's go to our nav agent and look at its next destination. Focus. It's just calling a function named find destination. All right. And all that's doing is telling it simple move to location. We saw this before last time when we were doing the just basic navigation. We have an array of specific points to get that specific location and move to it. But this is the part I want to focus on, that get controller and move to location. So if that's the case, let's set up another function, or let's go through the interfaces, same way as our state was calling this next destination. Call this move to. That's not a great setup because it's putting more code on the agent itself, not really focused in the state itself. So let's change it up a little bit rather than creating a new function directly on here. Let's just ask our let's have our state actually hold all of the functionality for it. So we'll need a way to tell it to move to that destination. We have a reference to our owner right here. We can then, if we look and try and just get the controller from this, there is a way to get the AI controller. So getting that AI controller, we can then communicate with it and tell it to move to. There's a bunch of different move tos. I recommend you just look through all several of them. I'm going to just use the simple move to location that we were using over in the other spot. Now we need to figure out where we want it to move. I need a way to figure out our player's position. There's a few ways I could go about this. I could do the kind of cheat way and just have just use a get actor of class. The reason why I say this is kind of a cheat way, if we're looking for just our player, BP player, this assumes there's only one character in the level named player or something like that. And that wouldn't work as like a follow target state necessarily, because what if we wanted to follow or to go to a specific object instead of the player and stuff? This would hard code it to always be the player. So instead, I'm going to create a variable. Create this variable and we'll call it target. I'm going to change the type. A bool wouldn't be very useful as a target, just true or false. But I'm going to just put it as a basic actor. An actor, specifically an object reference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expose this bool to be instance editable. So I can set this in the level. I just click compile because it wasn't compiled, but I don't have anything connected up there, so it's complaining. So now we have a target. Let's just say move towards that target. We'll have to get actor location. All right. Now, if we just play this again, what's going to happen when I click the game and press F? It changed to that and then went to the origin. I also press F again and it's just complaining cannot enter the same state, but it never went over to my player. I'm also getting access none trying to read target. It's happening when we call the simple move to location. Well, target is none by default. I never set it to the player. So in the level, if I wanted to set it, if we have just one of these selected, I'd have to set it per instance of the nav agent, just like we had to set up the nav points in the array. Problem is it's not on the nav agent itself anymore. I want to set it for this specific follow target state. That's where that variable exists. So we can look through here or use our eyedropper. Pick the player. And same thing for this. So it's follow to the player. All right. Now that those are assigned, press play. And if we press F, you see it changed to that state. Oh, but then stopped as it hit a nav point. So there's a few other things we need to handle. If I want it to ignore nav points when it's not in the nav point state, our agent right now is just saying when it begins overlapping with target point, regardless of what state it's in, it's always going to change back to that idle. No, it really only needs to do this over in the idle state or in the patrol state. That's the only time it should care about all this stuff. So I could ask our state machine if it is in a certain state. And I would want it to be in the patrol state when it does this. I'll just combine these to make sure that it's got both of these conditions as true using an AND operation. So both of these would have to be true in order for it to switch which nav point it's going to and tell it to go back to the idle. All right. Making progress slowly. So we press F. It did go to the player, but as my player moves around, it was only told to move to and was told a specific location when it entered the state. That's where another part comes in. So in our, I have quite a few things open. Let's close out of some of this. We don't need player, don't need patrol. State machine we'll leave open just in case. And project settings are done. We're done with our level experiment. Save our current level, don't need message log. All right. In our follow target, we'd want to continuously tell it to move to a certain location, not just when it's entering the state, but when this behavior is running or when the follow target is every frame so that as our player moves around, it can do that. So for this one, it's called run main behavior. We'll implement that. Grab the stuff for making it move to our player. And now it should actually be running this during tick and updating as the player's running around. So we play, press F, and now we've got it chasing the player and we're moving at the exact same speed, so it's just constantly on top. Let's go ahead and change that real quick. character movement. Let's drop that speed down a little bit. Walking. Say half of the normal speed. There we go. And it will actually navigate if I was able to get around this fast enough to take the shortest path. All right. So we've got it following the player. Problem is we don't have a way of disabling that right now. When I set this up, our button press was just saying toggle following, but that's not really a toggle right now. That's just constantly doing the following. Using that same method of checking if it's already in a state before doing something, like we did to prevent it from running all the code to change to the next thing, where we ask it, is it in state? Let's just copy those, bring that down here. If it is in a state, specifically the following state, we'll branch off that. If it is in following, I would not want to try and change to following again. If it's not in following, I would want it to change. But if it is already in following, I'd want to switch it back to just one of the basic states. Let's just go back to control. If it's already in following and we press the button again. All right. So now I should be able to press F, get it following, chasing around. If I wanted it to stop following, I'll press F again. And we see that that toggle is working in action. I can start, stop, whenever I want. All right. So any questions about what we went over today? Hopefully you got some insight on how the states can be set up and configured, things like that, how states are communicating to the nav agent, how the levels communicating to the nav agent, stuff like that. Is there any questions about anything we went over so far? Nope. Well, all right. That pretty much wraps it up for today's session. I do want to remind you that we have the experiment here is due today. Just make sure you run through that for the simple state machine. Went over that last lecture, and then tomorrow we have a couple more things. I know a few people have already started that discussion, so make sure you just knock that out. So first, the post is due tomorrow, and then reply required for the next day. And let's see, the NPC with the state machine, which kind of went over today, is due on Sunday. And then I'll see you again on Monday to talk about week 3 stuff. Sound good? All right, well, have a great rest of the week, everyone, and feel free to reach out in Discord or FSO, and we'll be there to help. Later on, everyone.